The final thing to consider in critical analysis of a study is to look for hidden variables. And just as its name implies, sometimes this isn't easy to do. You have to have a pretty good idea of where the data came from, but also to look into deeper surrounding factors that might affect the way that the data was collected or the way that the data came to be. So there's a really great example in your textbook that I'm going to walk you through. It says here that an arts council in a town is considering whether to fund the startup of a local youth orchestra. Council has a limited budget, so they want to spend their money wisely, and they know that the number of youth orchestras in the province has been slowly growing. But the council wants to know whether starting another youth orchestra will help in the development of young musicians. Will it give young musicians, say in public school and high school, a reason to want to join later on? If we build their skill sets young, will they continue into adulthood or as they become older youths? One measure of the success of these programs is to look for a correlation between the number of youth orchestra players and then see how many of them go on to perform in professional orchestras as adults. Because if this youth program results in professional orchestras being formed, then they would deem it to be a viable project or a viable way of spending their funds. So on the left hand side we can see the years 1991 all the way through to 2000, and you can see the number of orchestral youth players and the number of professional players. Now obviously there are more professionals than youth orchestra players to start, because there were probably some people in the community who could already play a particular instrument. So what happens when you graph the number of youth orchestras here versus professionals here, you can see that the data does an increase, then all of a sudden drops off but starts to increase again. You go, well, it looks like there should be some sort of increasing trend. But when you do a linear analysis of this, you discover that the R squared value they chose to use in this one is 0.026. It is very, very small. The R value is right here. It is 0.16243. So this classifies it as a weak positive correlation. If you also look at the data in terms of the number of professionals that play here on the y-axis, and you do it against the year down here, again you sort of see this increase, and then there's a drop and an increase again as well. And so you go, I wonder why there is a gap or a drop off in this region of the graph and a drop off here when everything else seems to be increasing. Maybe there's some sort of hidden variable that's affecting this data. So let's take a look at what would happen if you were to split the data into two sections, if you took out that year. And maybe you find out in the meantime that there might be a reason for that drop. If you all of a sudden knew that the country's professional orchestras went bankrupt in 1997, okay, right in the middle of that cluster, which was right here, right? Peak in 96 all the way down to 97, might you view the analysis of that data a little bit differently? So if you plot it from 1991 here through to 1996, and then skip and go from 97 to 2000, in other words, you take out that drop, that plummet that happened between 96 and 97. And if you do a linear analysis of professionals versus orchestras for both of those sections, you find that the R value is actually really, really high. It's around 0.23 for the first cluster of years and 0.94 for the second cluster of years, compared to when we put them all together with that drop in the middle, the R value is only 0.16. So splitting off the data into those two pieces and accounting for that hidden variable of the bankruptcy seems to help us see the data in a completely bit of a different light. we see that there is, in fact, a very strong correlation between the number of professionals and the number of orchestras once we take that hidden variable out. So we leave that as criteria number 4 in critical analysis, not because it isn't important, but sometimes it involves some research outside of the study to, again, see what's going on socially around a town, economically around a town, and world affairs to see if any of those circumstances might have an impact on the data point or the distance between data points as well. So there you have it. In summary, when you do critical analysis of study, you want to look at a variety of criteria that we've talked about in the previous lesson and this lesson, and then use your professional judgment in all of it to decide whether the correlation and ultimately is a causation too, which is what you're looking for. Enjoy going over this unit and doing some unit review for it as well. I hope you find the one variable and the two variable information useful. We'll start talking about independent projects in light of the coronavirus situation within the next couple of weeks. But now you have some tools to have in the background when you look at choosing topics. Chat soon.